This thing that I'm working on here is a leaf blower. And it's an old one from 1986. Somewhere around there. But anyway, this thing goes on the front of it like that. You can see it blows the leaves. It's got a big fan. It's over there. And the problem is when you go to pull this rope, this thing will jerk back on you really bad. So I need to find out why it's doing that. And also, it's leaking oil pretty bad. It's got a lot of blow by on it, so I'm going to put some new gaskets on this thing, clean it up, and see if I can get it running again. I'm draining the oil right now. Let me get that engine off of this thing where it's easier for me to work on, and we'll go from there. I've decided before I take the motor off of there, I want to pull this cover off, get the flywheel off there, and check the flywheel key and see if it may have spun or something on there. Okay, I'm going to get the coil off. Get the screen off. And got to get that clutch off of there. Keyway looks good. The washer's cracked. I got her in here on the bench, pressure washed it, got the grease off of it, and I want to pull this little plate off the side of it. And I want to look at the valve clearance and make sure the valves are going up and down. Now, from what I'm seeing here, I got an 11 thousandths gap down here on the intake side of it, and I've got absolutely no gap at all over here on the exhaust. This should be 7, and this should be 11, from 9 to 11 over here. 5 to 7, 9 to 11. That could be what's causing it to kick back. I'll get my grinder down here, or take this back up to the shop and grind it. Try to straighten those gaps out a little bit. Let's pull the head off, pull the sump off, and see what else we got. Or in this case, it's a side cover. The cam looks like it's in excellent shape. That one looks flat. That one looks nice and flat. I want to share with you what I'm seeing here. You can see where this one's sealing, that one's not. And the way that it is now, there's no way you could lap this valve. It's not even touching. Is it possible that the kickback could be coming from this one, not fully seating? I'm going to find out. I think it's a Frankenstein motor, and it's had its problems. If you could see right here, the rods went through the side of this thing at one time. And somebody done a really good job, it looks like, welding it up. I didn't see any oil leaks from there, but they welded the holes back into the sides of it and made one piece out of it. And I think they used just junk parts from other motors that fit into it. It's got good compression. I know that because it'll break your freaking arm. The exhaust valve, I'm gonna grind it down to 11 thousandths like it's supposed to be. I can't add to this one, so it's just gonna have to stay at 11 thousandths, and I hope that's enough to make it run halfway decent. And I'm gonna put her back together and see if this thing will run. In this clip, you see me honing the block, working with the rings on the piston and polishing the crankshaft. I'll go through a few of the highlights of these steps in the video. But for more in-depth details, I have links in the description below to videos that'll give you a lot more in-depth information on how to perform these tasks. Moving along, when installing the springs on this engine, you're going to need a spring compressor, especially for the exhaust valve. This has a lot of tension and would be very difficult to try and do this one by hand. My valves were lapped, cleaned up, and 11 thousandths was taken off of the tip of the exhaust valve. This, I believe, was the main problem with this engine, and we'll see at the end how it starts and runs. When honing an aluminum block, I use a solution of Dawn dish soap and water. I employ a hone with 3-inch stones at approximately 320 grit. In a block with steel sleeves, this is not recommended, so I use the same stones with a honing oil. During this process, I observed significant wear on the flywheel side of the crankshaft journal. Whenever I encounter this, I inspect the muffler and usually find a hole on its back side. Overheating is the main cause of such wear on air-cooled engines. Clogged fins on the head will have the same effect. I used a 1-inch brake hone to clean that journal. Don't worry about removing all the deep scratches, you just want it to be smooth. This can also be done by hand with a piece of 320 grit sandpaper. Whenever this kind of damage happens, you gotta clean up that crankshaft. I've got a couple of videos that show you how to do it. Don't be afraid, it's easy to do and well worth the time. I marked my rings before I took them out. These are going right back in there. If they are the originals, they're not wore very much. Now this is the center ring, the scraper, and there's a little step right there. That's going to face downwards. So I'm going to put this one on there first. Just going to walk it around. These are real fragile and they'll break really easy. And these days they're not that cheap. So my first one's in. My top ring is regular rectangular. There's no particular shapes to it at all. It can go up or down. There's no grooves on the inside of it. I had it marked top facing up, so that's the way I'm going to put it back in. Just walk her around like that. This one here has the spring that goes inside the oil ring. So I'm going to go up through the bottom. I'm going to put that one in there first. Doesn't matter either way this one goes. But if it was a previous ring, you want to try to keep it the same as it was when you took it out. So I'm going to start back here on the back side of it, get it over top of that spring. On that side, and it snapped right in there. This is ready to go in. I'll lube the piston and rings, the cylinder wall, the crankshaft, and the crank journal really well. Before installing the crankshaft, install a new seal in that front journal. It's a lot easier to do it now than to wait till later. Lube up the crankshaft and slide her in. When you install the piston, that notch is going to face towards the flywheel. Common practice is to put the oil ring gap at 6 o'clock from that mark. The scraper and compression rings at 2 and 10 o'clock. On these small motors, I usually just use my fingers to push the rings in as I work the piston down the cylinder. A ring compressor is handy and a little quicker if you have one. On the connecting rod is this little plate that locks the bolts after the cap is torqued down. Run the bolts through it first and then through the rod cap.
Lube and install the cap, then torque it down to 165 inch-pounds, or 18.8 Newton meters. If you can get channel locks or pliers on it, you can bend these tabs or just take a hammer like I did and tap them down. Just one side should be plenty. Lube and install the lifters. Lube and install the camshaft. Align the timing marks on the camshaft and the crankshaft like you see here. Install the side cover gasket. Oil everything up. Install a new seal in the crank journal and slide the cover on till it reaches where the seal mates the crank. Stop and help it around the crank to prevent the seal lip from flipping back. Push the cover on until it stops again. Turn the crankshaft by hand to help align the governor gear with the camshaft gear. Pushing down lightly while turning it will easily fall in place. Torque down the side cover to 140 inch-pounds.
I've put a new muffler on it, and the reason why is because the old one had a hole right back here blowing against this. The carburetor and governor and throttle assembly is like a jigsaw puzzle. I didn't want to go through all of that in this video, but it's already on there. I've saved the head bolts for last. There's a mounting bracket for the gas tank that goes on this side of it right here. And the top part of it is held on with two of these head bolts up here. So I left all of that for last. I got a new head gasket on it. This is going to be my next step. Get all these screws started, and then I'm going to torque down the head on it. You'll have 3 long ones, and the rest of them will be short. The 3 long ones with Briggs and Stratton always go on the corner where the muffler's at. Torque is the same on this as it is on the connecting rod. It's 165 inch-pounds. And if you're doing Newton meters, I've got 18.8 Newton meters. There we go. Our head's on. I started working on this on Veterans Day. Today's Christmas. So, got her finished. Let's see if it'll start up. Wow, this thing's blowing pretty damn good. It's blowing the rocks off of my driveway. If you made it this far in my video, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some good information out of it. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button on the way out. Got a lot of videos up there. Got a lot more coming. Ring that notification bell. You get notified as soon as I put them up there. Remember, when you're working in the shop, wear your safety glasses, all the protection you can, and have fun. Thanks for watching.